White glove? Oh god. Oh god. Yo, when that happened in the server, okay, this is the white glove story. I'm giving the white glove story. I'm pausing and giving the white glove story, okay? I stayed up late playing League of Legends with IRL friends on Discord. It was late. It was late. I finished late. I stayed up later than I should have. It was 2 a.m. I'm about to go to bed. Izzy Tan, mod of my server. It's like, there's an emergency. Can you call now? Normally, I'd be asleep, but I happen to be up at this time, 2 a.m., and I'm like, oh, I'll be pretty fast, sure. Get in. He's like, dude, there's someone, and then Aiden's in there too. Aiden's in there too. So Aiden's in there too, right? They're talking to this guy called White Glove. Apparently, and then they bring me into a private VC, right? Because they're all talking in general, but then they bring me into a private VC. It's Izzy Tan, Polis, and Aiden. And you know how Aiden gets. Aiden talks the exact same offline as he does on stream. You know how Aiden gets. So Aiden was there to up the ante in terms of how he explained it. There's a guy who refuses to shower because he might miss a precious moment in the lounge chat in my general Discord or in the VC. He might miss someone say, I'm autistic and I eat mayo. He might miss it. So he can't shower. Can't brush his teeth for months. Admitted to having cavities. I can't go to the dentist because then I'll miss out on some Bowblax Discord time. And then he's like, and then someone's like, so the decision was, should we kick him to make sure he can, like, you know, not be as, like, addicted to the server? Because obviously he has an addiction. Like, he has an addiction like it's gambling, right? If you're gonna sacrifice basic functions in order to be on the Discord for longer, you know? He's probably starving himself, too. Probably that as well. Just guessing. That wasn't said, but... So it's like... But the server really means a lot to them, and I like the community I created in the server. So my solution was to time them out for a week, so they can't interact in the server, but then they can come back in a week, which is what we ended up doing. I don't think that week's been up yet, but it should be up in the next couple days. But the initial idea was to ban him from the server, and he was like, if you ban me from the server, I'm going to KYS. And I'm like, what the fuck? KYS over my fucking tardy-ass server? Bruh. But they didn't KYS, obviously, so good for them. Because that is not the... Just no... Dude, killing yourself is... Let's be real, guys. Killing yourself is the stupidest thing you can do. You're wasting so much potential in life. Your life... How many people have lived in life and their whole life situation like changed within the last 5 years? Within the next few years, maybe the next few years will be similar, but it like completely radically changed your life situation in the next few years. How many times has that happened? It happens all the time. When you look back at yourself 5 years ago in the situation you were in, you would never imagine you'd be in the situation you are in today, and etc., etc., etc. So, if you have a lot of time to live, maybe if you're fucking 90 and you want to kill yourself, whatever. But if you're fucking like in your 20s or a teenager or 30s or what have you, and you have all this time ahead of you, even if your life is shitty now, it's not worth living now, sticking it out for it to change later is always worth. It's stupid to kill yourself. It's stupid. It's just dumb. It's just dumb. It just doesn't make sense. Even if your life is shitty, later it could get better. So... And some people think that chance is slim, but if your life is so shit in one moment, the chances of it getting better is exponentially increased. Like, if you're homeless, there's a 90% chance your life is going to be better in the next 5 years than it's going to be worse. Because how can it get worse if you're homeless? How can it get worse? It can't. Or whatever situation you're in. Like, mentally. Let's say it's mentally. Right? You could try out different medications. Eventually, something's going to work to make you in a better mind state than you were previous to that. You know, maybe it won't work right away. Maybe you don't have an all snap immediately it's better fix right now, and maybe you can't live suffer, you can't stand to live another day in your current shitty life, but all that is worth it if you can end up having a good life. Because especially with how much time you have left, a lot of people are suicidal, they're in their 20s, they're in their teens. Imagine how much time you have left. Even if it takes 5 years, 10 years to get better, you will have like 70, 60, 50 years to make your own life. Great life. Accomplish a lot of things you want. That's a lot of time to accomplish a lot of things. You've probably seen how much people can accomplish in a couple years. You know, and maybe you won't accomplish the same amount as that person you're comparing yourself to, but you can probably get to the same equivalent eventually in your life, like the next 10 years, the next 20 years. So killing yourself is retarded. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It logically doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. It doesn't. I don't know if this message helps people or not. Hopefully it does, but like legitimately like bruh. Like bruh. I don't know. And a lot of people who are suicidal, they're in a slump where they're like, oh, I can't do anything to improve my life. You could do even little things. Look into yourself. Try to see if you be like, oh, I'm so anxious. I wish I wasn't anxious. And I know that feeling. I'm diagnosed with anxiety. I take medication for it. But maybe you could instead of giving up, you could be like, what could I do to I know I have a harder time than other people, you know? I'm not going to expect to compare myself to someone who doesn't have an anxiety disorder, but what can I do to either mitigate it or improve it in some way or have me distracted by something else? The best way to cure anxiety is to distract yourself with something else. I don't know. You could get hobbies, or you could just think about how you can mentally improve yourself, like a long-term passion project. Like your mind, you creating and editing your mind is what is the legacy you're putting into this world. Your body, your mind, what you do is what you're putting into the world, and you can edit it like a customized character or whatever, and look inside yourself and try to be like, okay, instead of maybe I'm going to be more enthusiastic and optimistic when I meet up with my friends. Maybe I'll try to be a little less mopey or whatever. It might take a lot of energy, but maybe I'll like the results. I don't know. There's a lot you can do. And it doesn't even have to be physical, because a lot of people are give advice like, oh, touch grass, go outside, blah, blah, blah. But that's such generic advice. Sometimes a lot of the improvement you have to do in your head, right? And that's a lot more complex to, figure out, but it's always possible. It's always possible, all right? And this doesn't even apply to suicidal people. This applies to everyone. It could probably even apply to, there's always room to improve. It applies to me. It'll probably apply to a lot of you guys in chat. Just, you can always, improve certain things or whatever. I don't know. Here's a great example that everyone can understand. And I'm not gay or trans or whatever, so I've never had the experience of, coming out. Although, yeah, I've never really had the experience of, coming out, but, if you are one of those things and you're in the closet, I don't mean it like that. If you are one of these, if you're LGBT and you're in the closet about it and you come out about it, that's a huge step in terms of expressing yourself in a more accurate way. And even if you aren't LGBT, this applies to me too, you can always do things usually to express yourself in a better way. And almost nobody in the world is expressing themselves to the most potential they can. Maybe 1% of people or less are expressing themselves in the most potential way they can. Usually, what's happening in the mind is 100% more interesting, beautiful, intricate than what you are showing people through translating your mind through your body to talk to people. Sometimes it's literally, yeah, so you can always improve that translation from what's in your mind to what's coming out of your mind and how you're expressing yourself. Maybe you're a lot more happy about meeting your friend and hanging out with your friends than how you express. So maybe you could try to say more cheery things or improve your tone or smile more or something like that. I don't know. A lot of this advice is coming from an autistic perspective. So maybe a lot of this stuff comes naturally to you guys. Maybe a lot of this advice does not work for you guys in particular with the way your brain works in a neurotypical way. But for autism in particular, I know that this advice is good and that you should apply it. And I think it can apply to neurotypical people as well and depressed people and stuff like that. And you know what, as an autistic or whatever, or even non-autistic, sometimes you're gonna, edit yourself in a certain way that you think is good, and then people have a negative reaction to it, but usually that's not the case. Usually people aren't rude. Usually people are nice, understanding, I don't know. Just don't be afraid to express yourself. Right? It's not even being afraid. It's like, I'm not afraid to express myself, but I don't know how to express myself more. Then try to learn, right? I mean, there's not really that much good advice out there to learn how to do that. I guess you kind of have to figure it out on your own, unfortunately, but just like, think about an aspect of yourself that's like underappreciated, that no one else thinks about. Like, for example, I don't know, you could say, I'm very charismatic, but a lot of people don't think of me that way. Okay, then do more to express what's charismatic in your head and then like show it through body and talking. How do you think people should deal with people disliking them online? It really depends the scenario. But I'm not going to use my scenario because I'm a content creator. I'm going to use a scenario that's like one of you guys. Like, let's say, White Glove right now, right? They're not a content creator. They said embarrassing stuff in my Discord about, not showering and stuff like that. And they're probably going to be under a lot of scrutiny from Augie RFC fans and other people or whatever, calling them spurgy and cringe, and even me talking about it briefly on my stream probably upsets them, and they kind of classify it as hate in their head. The best way to deal with that is to, number one, get offline and don't like read or watch particular things of what people are saying about you. Um, but also take and absorb the overall reaction to it, right? Like the overall reaction to it is like, no one hates White Glove, but they're like, oh, it's spurgy, it's funny or whatever, and clearly they're having that reaction because what they're doing is not typical or healthy or what anyone probably should do. So you can kind of take that general advice of, oh, maybe it's not, maybe I should shower more, or maybe like I shouldn't pay as much attention to Discord. Not that I should cut it out completely, but maybe I should scale back on it and take that general kind of feedback, that like hodgepodge of feedback that is kind of like a general collective of what everyone's thinking, and then go offline and apply that in your real life. You don't have to prove yourself to anybody online. Just make sure that genuinely you're taking in that criticism and kind of like applying it to yourself, even if it's in a minor way, even if it's not like I'm the most socially functional person immediately after hearing that and I immediately take showers or whatever. But maybe, I don't know, take a couple hours to get off of Discord, go out of your way to take a shower more often, Maybe you won't be the ideal person, but you will be making an improvement, right? But if you start looking into like what everybody is saying, like let's say Augie talks about it on stream and you're like analyzing every minute and going back in it and rewatching what he said and stuff, like how I was with the Sonic Frontiers footage, uh, all the little things are gonna get in your head, and ultimately you just gotta take like the general consensus and use that to improve yourself in a way that you know can work for you and can be practical within your life, because nobody talking about this knows about what your life is behind the screen. Only you do. So you can take that general kind of advice and apply it in a way that makes sense to you and makes sense for your situation, but you don't have to take like very particular advice like Augie like maybe would very particularly say like, hey, maybe you should go out to the bowling alley with your friends. If there's not a bowling alley near you, or you don't have enough friends to contact to get that to happen, or who would be willing to do that with you, like sometimes that advice can't apply to you, right? But the sentiment of getting out of the house and doing something else is still there. So take that sentiment, that general sentiment, not the specific advice, but the general sentiment, and then apply it to your life in a way that makes sense to you. That's the best way to deal with hate or criticism. Sometimes you see criticism from people that's like, okay, this doesn't make sense because this is not how I think, this is not how I feel. And I'm talking about criticism that I get now, not specifically White Glove now. And it's because they don't have enough context to your mindset in your head to properly apply the criticism, but there's still a general sentiment there that you could maybe learn from. Like, let's say, I don't know, I upload my new H3 video and people are like, oh, you're too biased towards Ethan, you're saying he should get away with no consequences at all, which is a comment that I received. But I'm like, in the video I said that his video should be removed and he should get a strike, he just shouldn't get a full channel termination. So clearly they didn't take in what I was saying accurately enough to give an accurate response, but maybe the overall sentiment of I sounded a little too positive towards Ethan in the video could be relevant and apply to future videos that I make. So it's about taking the hate and then try to like dissect why they feel that way rather than taking into account the particular words. If that makes sense. Hopefully everything I made sense. It's really abstract. It's really like psychological based. Obviously you can tell that I like talking about psychology. This is the when I say I'm like into psychology and I study psychology and stuff, this is the stuff I'm talking about. What I'm talking about right now, which is why I'm kind of fluent in it. But hopefully I'm fluent enough for you guys to understand. Hello, Stardust. How you doing? So yeah, that's how you deal with hate in the situation that White Glove is in. And I guess I also gave an explanation of how I would deal with hate as well. So yeah, hopefully people have learned something from what I have said.